Hello, everyone, and welcome back to 15 with Voska, the podcast. My guest today is Dr. Manjula Dias-Hargarter, who is joining us from Hamburg, Germany today. She is an educator, an editor, and a writer, and she is currently at work on a series of essays focusing on language as a lens. She uses the experience she has acquired in the States and in Germany as her source material, considering them as one might view a tapestry, not just the front, but also the back. Thank you, Manjula, for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, Voska.
And I want to say two things. The first is that we've known each other for an awfully long time.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh my
and
gosh.
We met in college and we took Italian together, didn't we?
Baby Italian and several more
Italian.
several classes.
We
several
did.
Classes.
Yeah,
yes.
we took a lot of Italian together.
Mm-hmm.
And then you ended up in Germany and I ended up in Italy.
Mm-hmm.
And, we've kept in touch, seen each other at reunions. It's nice.
Yes.
There is a group of us expats here in Europe. But I love the fact that you recently responded to my newsletter and you reached out to me. You wrote a beautiful email. Can I just say, and first of all, I was like, oh, people read my newsletter. And you wrote this lovely, thoughtful response to it. And you told me about the work you're doing. And I said, let's talk about it on the podcast because I think what you're doing is incredibly exciting. And I want everyone to hear all about it.
Great.
You ready
Awesome.
should we just dive right in?
Let's dive in. Let's do this.
Okay. So I mentioned we first met at Bryn Mawr, wonderful place, in Osakata. And when you look back at that young woman, what do you think she would be most surprised to learn about the life you've built for yourself?
Voska, that young woman would be shocked that I am on this side of the Alps and not your side of the Alps. It makes no sense that I'm in Germany at all. I was studying art history. I had chosen Italian as the language I wanted to study. I loved Italy. I'd been there before. If I were going to land anywhere abroad, it was supposed to be Italy. So
what happened?
What are you doing there? Yeah, but I have been to Italy a few times since. But that's the shock.
Well, you're not that far away. But
No,
how did Germany enter your story, and what ultimately convinced you to stay?
Well, that was a decision of the head and the heart. So I did go to graduate school in the United States, but for art history, and it didn't. I don't know. Things may have changed since I did my degree, but at the time, everybody had to know French and German for advanced programs. And it was possible to do French for reading knowledge and get that out of the way, but German for reading knowledge is a little harder. And I did that class, but it's just not sufficient. And I thought, well, maybe I should just learn German in Germany and take a year and go. And also, that's the heart part of this question, is that I was seeing somebody who happened to be German. So I decided to test the waters for a year because it had been a little while. And I thought, you know what? Let's see if this is Mr. Right or Mr. Right now. And I'll come for a year. I'll learn German, and then I'll see where things are going. And I got lucky because turned out to be Mr. Right. And I found, and this wasn't actually my plan, I found my dissertation advisor in Germany, which wasn't my original plan. I thought I would come and learn German and go back to the States, but I did my doctoral degree in Germany. And
I didn't realize that.
Yes.
I knew about your husband, but I didn't know that you already knew him, and then I didn't know that you had finished your dissertation in Germany.
Yep.
This is actually very interesting. Then our conversation could take it. Well, we already have decided we're gonna need to do a follow-up because to talk about all sorts of things, but we could talk about the educational system in Germany which is similar to Italy's as well. What a great story, though. I love how life something that you think something similar happened to me because I was between the master's and the PhD.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't convinced that I wanted to go into academia. I was
Mm-hmm.
surprised. And of course, then I ended up dedicating my life to academia. And I took a leave of absence
Oh.
and my professor said, go to Italy. It'll be good because I was getting I was in the PhD program for Italian studies.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, go to Italy for a while. It's good. You'll really perfect your Italian and
Mm-hmm.
it'll be good for you. And then, well, the rest
Well,
is history.
life happened.
Life happens. It really just happens. And if, and in wonderful serendipitous ways. I don't think either of us, when we knew each other in those early years, could have imagined when we were on that gorgeous campus, in the
Mm-hmm.
suburbs of Philadelphia, that we would have ended up so far from home.
Absolutely. Yeah, no way. No way. That
No
was,
way.
yeah, Nancy DeSophie is looking at us from
From
above.
heaven.
Yeah,
Oh,
she was
you're gonna make me
amazing.
cry.
It
She
was
was love.
amazing.
What a
Yeah.
beautiful woman. Were you in that class with me where we went to the opera or
Oh,
no?
I'm not sure. I
Took a great class with her on opera and she was a huge she had a subscription to the Met and we went up to New York. I guess we must have taken the train and we went to a dress rehearsal
Oh
of
no, I
oh
wasn't in
she
that. Nah.
was
Darn.
damn right. I want to go back to college, by the way. Like I'm not done learning. Anyway, let's get you and I have all these similarities because we've both spent much of our life really navigating different cultures. And
Yes.
was there a moment when, because I know it doesn't always feel like home, and I know
Oh
that
God,
it
no.
didn't always feel like home, but was there one of those aha moments where you said, okay, this Germany is my home?
Yes, I had lived in another. I Hamburg isn't my only stop in Germany. I've lived in several German cities, and the city before was in the south, and I'd lived there for 8 years. And
Mm,
each summer, I would go with my children to the States and spend a long time there. Bring them to summer camp, get them to get as much English into their system as possible. And then their father would come and join us for a few weeks. He couldn't take 6 weeks off. And then we'd come home, and every time, for a few days before it was time to come home, I apologized to my whole family because I was so unhappy. I was cranky. I was irritable. I just did not feel like this southern city in Germany was my home. And that is not to say that the people there were not lovely. I have lovely friends in that city, but coming home, wow, I was so homesick, so homesick. And it wasn't until we moved to Hamburg
mm,
when I felt this is my home. And when I return to this city from wherever I am, if I'm visiting friends or if I'm visiting my family, I'm so happy when the airline attendant says, "We are landing in Hamburg shortly. Fasten your seatbelts." I'm so happy. And also feeling that I'm home has, I think, when I'm in other cities, other places, not in Germany, and I hear German being spoken, I get so excited. I hear people, oh, those are some Germans. I can hear them. And I love that. Makes me
I love,
happy.
but what's your relationship with the States now? I mean, you still go back
Oof. Well, I haven't,
or not
I
as
think
much?
not as much now. My mom actually just moved to Sri Lanka. So that's actually been that's a whole nother story. But my home, actually, Fosca, the place where I grew up in the States, I actually don't have a place to go anymore.
Ah,
So I'm not really sure how that's going to roll
yeah.
in the future. I don't have a place to go anymore. And, that's in this, and I have relatives in Florida. My dad is in Florida, but that setup is not conducive for me to go and crash for, an
Yeah.
extended period. That's not like that doesn't
Yeah.
work. So right now I don't really know. I don't know that how that's going to work. We'll see.
Well,
We have
it's
reunion
strange.
next year.
Yeah. No. Oh, I mean, oh yeah, we do. Yeah.
Mhm.
I think about that a lot. I always
Mhm.
I Florence has been my home for so long. I feel
Mhm.
like you have lived in Germany just about as long or more longer
Yes.
than I have here. It's been, 30 years now.
Hmm.
And, when I go back to the States, it's very strange. Some
Hmm.
things feel like home. For example, I go back to Bryn Mawr.
Yep.
I feel like I'm at home.
Yep.
Um, and New York City always feels like home. Uh,
Hmm.
for a long time, the Bay Area felt like home because,
Hmm.
for all my years working for Stanford, but I have a strange relationship with the States now.
Yeah.
And I realize
Yes.
that, I think when you live for so long abroad, um, you can't, you're different. You're changed.
Yep.
You're
Yep.
changed. We all
Absolutely.
change, but you're really changed. And so this is a good segue into my next question because I love what you're working on right now.
Ooh.
And I'm so excited for you to talk about it. So you are writing about language as a lens. Can you talk a little more about that? Tell me what you're working on right now.
Yes. So the idea came to write about this at about, and you had just mentioned this, it's perfect. You said you've been here for so long. It was at about the halfway mark of my life when I
Mhm.
realized I've been here for as long as I've been in the States. And that just shifted something inside me. And I thought, I think I need to write this down. And I started writing these thoughts down. And language as a lens is just the framework for these essays. And it's the full phrase is actually language as a lens for living. And when I say living, I mean how we define ourselves and others, how we assess ourselves and others, and how we make decisions about our lives, our work, and not just for ourselves, but also for others, whether it's our children or people we work with. And that is something that I've observed in the many hats that I've worn since I came to Germany, but also actually the hats that I wore when I was in the States and I was working after graduate school. That I've been an educator. I've worked with many different groups of people. I've been working in writing and editing, and I've seen different people from different walks of life and their relationships to language. And it's not just their own language, it's the language that they're learning, that, if it's an English class. And the way that they talk about themselves, Fosca, it's shocking to me when I have an adult who tells me, "Oh, I'm not very good at English. Please excuse my poor English." And then I ask them, not in a, just truly out of curiosity, who told you that? And they
Yeah.
will say something like, "Oh, my second grade teacher told me that I'm terrible at languages and I'm never going to be good at it." And this, Tosca, is really tragic.
Yeah.
And it makes people make decisions about themselves, because then they say, "I'm not going to go for that promotion because that promotion will require me to speak a lot or run meetings and I have to do it in English or whatever it is." And then they say, "Let me stay in this job." I mean, you see where I'm going. And I just feel that language is one of those things that we are surrounded by it every day, whether it's written, spoken, emails, what have you. And yet, I think we don't really think about the power that it has over us. It's like air. We're
Yeah.
just we're taking it in all the time, but I
Yeah.
don't think everyone is really thinking about it and how the words can hurt you and or help. And
Yeah.
I'm not, so I mean it's not all. I'm making it sound a little bit like doom and gloom. I don't want that. That's not what I mean. But I'm just saying that how we talk about ourselves and what we can do, and that's sort of where I'm going with it, if that makes sense.
It does. And I have
Mhm.
so much to respond to.
Oh,
So
good, good, good.
so much to respond to here. First of all, I hear people say the same thing all the time.
Yep,
And I tell them it's complete bullshit.
yep.
When I hear people who say, Italians also tend to be, especially for our generation of Italians, for
Hmm.
younger Italians, it's different. But for
Hmm.
our generation, the world was a very different place. And
Hmm.
English wasn't necessarily a priority in school. It wasn't taught well. Now, I know a
Right.
lot of Italians who either speak, survival English or what have you. But a lot of people I talk to will say to me something like, "Oh, I'm just not good," or I've exactly the kind of same narrative that you were just saying. And, lately, I think, yeah, a lot of people do. I think you and I, first of all, by virtue of the fact that we are both writers, we're both communicators, et cetera, but also because we have lived in that liminal space now. We have
Mm-hmm.
raised bilingual children. We have
Mm-hmm.
worked in, another language. We have loved in another language.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, those those are very profound examples of, when language, I think the work you're doing is actually very empowering because it's that awareness, right? No,
Yes.
you can change the narrative. And something I've become obsessed with lately is neuroplasticity and those,
Yes.
right? And the
Mm-hmm.
messages that we send ourselves that are so detrimental, and especially when they're formed in our school years,
Mm-hmm.
it's really hard to shake those. And then it becomes this like psychological block, right?
Yep.
Your kids didn't learn your kids, like my daughter, we spoke to them in English. We took them to the States. So, and then,
Mm-hmm.
they learned German and Italian, that was their life was in German or Italian. And so, but they think about language.
Yep.
I
They
mean,
do.
I'm sure, I don't know how much of your essays or if any of your essays talk a little bit about, kids and how they acquire language and how brilliant they are about, just how they also have kind of different personalities
Oh,
in
yes.
each language, which is so fascinating to me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I'm obsessed with this subject. I think you're doing a great thing. I think raising awareness around this and also making people aware of the fact that when we put these kind of limitations on ourselves, language is, as you rightfully said, it's like air, and
Mm-hmm.
it's such a beautiful way to be able to live your life if you have access to. I wish I spoke more languages. I wish I could communicate with more people. Mm. So, tell me more about how living and working in Germany has maybe
Mm-hmm.
changed. I'm gonna say who you are because I
Okay.
believe it has.
Okay. Okay. It has. It has.
Yeah. And German
How?
also has all those great words. German has all those great words. I know you know this, but there are all these like, I don't know if they're memes or whatever, but people are always
Mhm.
like, oh, there must be a word in German for
Yeah.
that. Oops. Um, so how has that shaped you, formed you, changed you, the way you think, the way you are?
Yeah, it definitely has. And I think I can give you a few examples. I don't know if you know Modern Family, the show.
I love Modern Family. I'm a
Okay.
huge fan.
Well, for the people who don't know Modern Family, it's a fantastic show and they should all go watch it. But Gloria, the character Gloria, is the one for whom English is not her first language. And there's an episode, I don't know which season it is, where, most of the time she's kind of a comical Barbie figure. She's a bit clumsy, but she's also gorgeous. And there's an episode where she says something like, "You don't know how smart I am in my own language." And I don't know if the writers meant for that to be funny
Mm,
or not. But when I see that, I actually get tears in my eyes because that is that's a real struggle. And I've had students say this to me who are, adult students who sit there and are trying to think of a word or something to say. And they've said to me, "I sound so stupid in this language. I sound so dumb." And I think that that is a way of thinking and being that, like, as you said, you become sort of different. You're slipping into different identities depending on the language you speak. That's one thing. But another answer to your question is, and this is not joking around. When I came here, there were a few years where I thought I had completely lost A, my sense of humor, and B, my sense of what I like, my heart. I thought it was the Tin Man, that I had no heart because it didn't matter what I read or saw on let's just say television, but I didn't think that anything and I'm probably going to make a lot of enemies now, but the things that people thought were funny in the United States, I just sat there and scratched my head and I thought, I don't get it. That's not funny. And then the same thing happened to me in Germany. I would watch some German comedian and think, is that funny? I don't think that's funny at all. And I thought, where did my sense of humor die? I don't
Yeah.
know. And I
Yeah.
think it landed somewhere in like the UK. I think that's actually where in the somewhere in the UK or in Sweden or somewhere up there.
Somewhere in
Uh,
between.
somewhere
Yeah.
really good, but
Yeah.
truly, so truly, that's where my sense of humor seems to have landed. And the same thing with what I find moving, something that brings me to tears. I find some things now, what I used to like in the United States, I find that really overly sentimental and sappy, or a book that everyone says, this is a great book. You've got to read the book. And I read the book and I think, what on earth were they thinking? This book I don't like this book at all. And I'm not a snob. I don't get it. So
Fascinating.
that definitely happened to me, that I kind of what I was moved by just really shifted. And it took a while to figure out where it was. So I don't know if that happened to you, but
Yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, I think it's now that you're sort of underlining it and talking about it, yeah, I think there is a disconnect sometimes,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
And there are certain things that I just don't get, you
Mm-hmm.
know, about both cultures, I think. So I don't know what that says about me, but I think, but maybe that's something sort of to be studied. I'm sure somebody
Mm-hmm.
studied it, but all the ways I always say, I have a different personality in Italian and in English. I mean, it's not
Mm-hmm.
that
Mm-hmm.
different, but it is kind of
Mm-hmm.
like I am much funnier in English,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I mean, I can be funny in Italian too, but man, I am much funnier in English. And
Mm-hmm.
so, and I don't know, and then I think you take on all of the qualities of your host country, right? Your adopted
Yes.
country. And so, Italians, for example, Italians love to complain, well, especially Florentines and Tuscans, I'm going to make a lot of
Okay.
here, but they love to complain, or they often say things like, oh, they don't appreciate what they have, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so I'm not a complainer. And so that's not something I've adopted. But I
Mm-hmm.
was literally just talking about it the other day. I was with two friends at the beach, and we were talking about how if somebody says to you, "Come stai?" Like,
Mm-hmm.
how are you? You really, if you answer benissimo, like I'm doing great, people are kind of
Mm-hmm.
like that. You know what I mean? So
Oh.
it's always better to give like a neutral, like, yeah, so, così così, like you're okay, like va bene, we were actually talking about all like the potential responses, like, could be better, things are okay.
Uh-huh.
Next question, I'm not going to complain, but you're kind of complaining, and so
Mm-hmm.
all of these nuances of
Mm-hmm.
language and culture, I find absolutely fascinating. I find absolutely fascinating, and also how I don't know if this happens to you, but obviously we're both completely fluent by this point. If not, there'd be a problem. But sometimes but sometimes, I mean, there are just certain words that I can't pronounce right, or I don't know if I have like a mental block, or
Mm-hmm.
I've learned it that way. Maybe it's a word that I've read more than I've said, or something
Mm-hmm.
like that. Anyway, so language and the way we live and communicate is so fascinating.
It is.
So
It totally
fascinating.
is.
So
It
fast.
totally is.
So let's go back to those famous German words. Um,
Okay.
I'm obsessed with this. But so are there any words or expressions or ideas in German that have helped you understand life differently than English does, or even just that you love? Because it's
Uh,
something that we can't, it would take us to 20 words in English to express.
I think this is a hard question. I thought hard about this one, and there's not a specific word, but what I do want to say about this is that in general, German, the language of Germany has forced me to become very discerning about what I want to say. I have become very precise, very
Mm,
specific. And I will give you an example. If in the United States, back in the day, you had a kid in kindergarten, like kindergarten, the thing where they're 5 years old, and you said to them, "How's school?" They would be like, "School's great." You try that in Germany, Fosca, that child will correct you and say, "I'm not in school, I am in kindergarten." There is a distinction, and the 5-year-old knows it. Yes, it's so funny. So
wow.
yeah. I mean, and I don't want to confuse people, but basically what we refer to as preschool from the ages of 3 to just before 6, that is called kindergarten.
Okay.
Um, so you can't call that school. The children will correct you. They'll say, "That's not school, that's kindergarten." And going to school has a whole tradition. There's this beautiful, like, this whole thing of the school cone, and it's decorated and you get candy in it. And it's a huge rite of passage to
Okay.
enter school. That's maybe another topic for another day. That the beginning of school is celebrated. We don't have a graduation from elementary school, which might be a thing that is done in the United States. It is the entrance, it's the beginning to this phase that is celebrated. So I think that's very interesting that and even little children get it. They
Wow.
get it. And
Yeah.
and then the other one, and I think this also goes along the specificity and precision. It definitely has changed how I view friends versus acquaintances. I don't know if you do the same in Italian. My Italian, I'm sorry to say that I I can't speak it
Happen.
anymore.
It happens.
But now in Germany, I would never refer to someone who's not a friend as a friend. And I think in the States, people tend to, and maybe this has changed, but people used to say,
Everyone.
"Oh, friends of mine. Oh, that's a friend of
Right.
mine. That's a good friend of
Yeah.
mine." I'm like, "Whoa, you
Yeah.
have a lot of friends." We don't do
Yeah.
that here. We're very, very, very discerning. And you don't even get invited to, maybe this is also part of your question. When I first moved here to Frankfurt, that was my first stop, Frankfurt am Main, a woman that I met, she said to me, "You will not be invited to a German's home for at least a year. It'll take
Huh.
at least a year before they invite you over." And she was right. So even that concept of the home as your castle, your private space,
Yeah.
it's not for everybody. Not everybody is welcome. And I don't, that, again, that was a long time ago. So I don't know if things have changed since then, but it certainly makes me think about who do I invite into my home.
Right.
And maybe in the United States, maybe back in the day, I would have said, "Oh, come on over," and not thought much about it.
Yeah. Florence is very similar. I'm not going to say Italy, but Florentines
Mm.
are notorious. There's sort of people say, it's really hard to make friends with Florentines,
Mhm.
but once you're in, that's it.
Mhm.
You're
Mhm.
friends for
Yep.
life. And, as you were talking, I realized that I mean, something that I don't want to be, I don't want to say anything against, Americans, but we have the tendency to be just a little like too much information immediately, all the time. Like, we don't all need to know all this, right? And and I guess I don't think I've ever been that way, but certainly having lived here for so long, I
Yep.
am much more reserved,
Yes.
much more private. Um, like that doesn't mean I'm cold or anything, but if I just meet somebody for the first time, they're not going to know that much about me at the end of the night. They might have an impression of me, but I'm not going to have told them literally everything. And we as Americans, I think I actually wrote, there's a sentence like this in my novel, which we'll talk about off the air, but I think there's a phrase literally where I say, we always, love everybody and everything. And we're always, telling literally within the first 5 minutes, telling a perfect stranger extremely intimate details about ourselves. And that's something that does not happen here.
Yep.
It does
100%.
not happen. And you don't do it. And actually, you'd probably be judged if you did. People would
Yes.
be like, who is this? Like, why is she telling me that? I didn't ask. You're like, I don't want to
Yep.
know this,
Yep. Yep.
And so it's fascinating the way all of those things are so intertwined, but also the way that they really condition. Now that you and I are talking, I realize just how much I have been conditioned by everything. And getting back to the language thing, you know,
Mhm.
um, Italian is a very different language, as you know, having studied it.
Mhm.
Italians just use so many words. It's like opposite of German. And something for me that was always fascinating, working in Italian, is that you say so much. You use so many words. And we would look at the English, let's say the original Italian document was
Mhm.
10 pages or something. I would do a translation, it would end up being 3 pages. All of
No.
this, yeah, all of this, because it's cultural. You have to, there's a whole, you need to construct things in a certain way, and it needs to be very formal. The language is it's extremely, in English is very direct, and it's just completely different. Fascinating. I want to get back to your metaphor of
Okay.
tapestry,
Okay.
which I love. So, because I mentioned in the opening intro that you talk about the back of the tapestry. So,
Mhm.
tell me more about how that idea came to you and that metaphor. And also, what do we see when we look at the back of the tapestry and not the front?
Okay. I will give a little disclaimer because I did do my degree in art history. I am not an expert in textiles. That is not my area of expertise. I just want to say that out front,
It's fine. It's
right
fine.
away.
Fine.
But there are tapestries that are meant to be viewed from the front and the back. That's actually a thing in Asian
Yes.
tapestries. But
Yes.
European tapestries usually have a liner on the back. But the weaver is using a cartoon and and creating the tapestry from the back. So when I think about language and a tapestry, I think about the
Mm,
effort and the paradoxes of many aspects of language. So if you think about language as a motivator or as a carrot, as if you will, it's also a
yeah.
stick.
Hmm.
So I think about language as the carrot and the stick. Like, let's say, oh, I want to learn Italian. Italian is fun, and that's great if you are under no pressure to learn Italian. But if you need to learn Italian because without Italian you are not able to attend XYZ university, it's not a
Right.
carrot anymore. It's a stick.
Yeah.
Um, and fun fact, I had to learn Latin to submit my dissertation. I did not know this until it was time for me to submit my dissertation
No,
because nowhere was it written in any, this was pre-internet. Like, well, it wasn't exactly pre-internet, but
it
it
was
was
around,
it was
it was
early internet.
dawning. It was
It was
dawning.
early.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
early internet days. And nobody said this to me. And I thought, now what do? I have to learn Latin. So that I had to learn, I had to learn Latin. I had to take a
It
crash
became your
course.
stick.
It became a stick, and oh boy, was it a stick. But yeah, so that was a stick. And there are other tapestry terms I could tell you, like a catapult versus a
Mm.
chain, or currency, or old coins that are weighing you down in an old dusty bag someplace. And of course, the one I like the most, which is the vision, language as a vision of what you might be able to achieve and what you want to achieve versus the mirage that you get a little bit closer. You think, I have almost made it. I'm at level C1. And then you
Yeah.
get there and you're like, damn it, I have so much more to learn. I'm not even close. I'm beginning to scratch the surface. So that's what I mean by the tapestry. And I don't want to talk about it in terms of good or bad. It's
Yeah.
just there are two sides to everything. And for people who listen to you, who think about maybe moving to Italy or,
Yeah.
relocating, it's not to frighten anyone away. It's simply to say, it's both. Life is a rich tapestry, and
Yeah.
there are things to consider on both sides, and that's all it is.
And you really you a lot of my clients are relocation clients, and they're older,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
they have,
Mm-hmm.
we can get back to what we were talking about at the start of the conversation, language learning. There's also this very common narrative out there. Oh, well, you can't really learn, it's impossible to learn a language later in life and blah, blah, blah. So I love the fact that you put all these nuances and all of these, the tapestry metaphor is actually quite effective because it shows the reality you know,
Hmm.
and how even within one reality, there are multiple realities, right? And so
Yes.
I think that's a beautiful way of looking at it, a beautiful way of approaching language and any, I would actually say a few different, anything that you need to learn, right?
Absolutely.
There's,
Absolutely.
it's like if you're playing a sport and you finally you cross that, or you're at the gym and you can finally lift I don't know how much in weights or whatever, and you think, okay, I finally, I passed that threshold, and then but you maybe take a step back, or
Mhm.
the next day you can't do it, or the next week, whatever, maybe you're more tired or whatever, you didn't have a proper breakfast or enough, as Americans are obsessed with proteins, you didn't have enough protein. And do you see how what we've become? Because you
Yeah.
laughed because it's true. Like some of these things,
It's
I'm
true.
just like, whatever. Like people talk about protein here, but it's not the same. Not the same. Anyway, um, something I think a lot about, Manjula, is, I mean, I don't do a what if type of thing, but I do think about the things that I've gained by choosing to live abroad, and also the things that I've sort of missed out on you. If you reflect on that, what would you say maybe are the greatest gifts that you've received by making this choice, and maybe some of the things that you feel like, no, I wouldn't say losses, but things that maybe, I don't know, you might have missed out on or something, if you ever think
Sure.
about those things.
Sure. I think you actually mentioned this yourself, that you're not the same person that you were when you left your home country. And I mean, and and that is a gift, and that's also, I don't want, like you, the word loss is difficult because it's not exactly a loss, but it's a letting go. And the
Exactly.
image that I think about is a trapeze artist, like an old timey circus. Not Cirque
Mhm.
du Soleil. I don't mean that. I mean old timey circus, where
Yeah.
you have a trapeze artist on one end, and this person is trying to make it over to the other end, and there are two bars swinging wildly from high above, and you have to let go before you can reach the other side. And there's a moment when you're just flying in the air. And I don't think that it is possible to live in a new place like Italy or Germany and really really embrace it only on the if you only do the things that you're supposed to do. If you
Yeah.
learn the language and you understand the customs, but you don't really internalize them and you don't believe in them and you secretly think they're very stupid. I think people sense that. I think that
Yeah.
they sense it, and then you can't belong. Then you can't really fit in. And I think that's a gift, but it's also, you have to let go of things, and you have to make a choice, I think, and be
A hun-
willing to live in that, and be willing to live in that uncertainty where you're not sure
Yeah,
where you belong. Like the sense of humor is lost somewhere in the Atlantic Ocean
for
because,
sure.
you know,
Yeah. And be okay. But I think exactly, like I couldn't agree with you more. Like a lot of it is also just say, sort of this the beauty of just letting it go,
yep.
and also accepting that sometimes you will feel like, a fish out of water, or
Mhm.
you will have moments where you feel more or less of a, sense of belonging or a connection or what have you.
Mhm.
But I think the awareness of it is also, I think, well, it definitely makes you a more interesting person. So, your life, get back to the metaphor of this beautiful metaphor of the tapestry, and now I'm thinking about trapeze artists, which is also beautiful. um, so if we look at your life as a tapestry, what do you think is the thread that runs through it all?
I think that it is, for sure, it is language, but not just language. It's meeting people where they are. That,
Oh,
I think, is what runs through my tapestry, because I've worked in a few different areas. And whether it's teaching or talking about art, if I'm in a museum and I'm explaining to people something about art, I don't assume that they know XYZ. I meet them where they are, and I want to help them to get to where they want to go. So if they're just there to spend an hour and just hang around and they're not really interested in learning anything, then I'm not going to force that. But if there's a group of people who says, I'm really curious, I don't understand this painting, help me out, then okay, let me help you. So it's really understanding where's the person, who's the person I'm trying to help. And I think that actually has been my common thread. And it also happens in my volunteer work. I work in a counseling center. Well, it's not a center. It's affiliated with a church, but you can be of any religious denomination or none at all, and you can still come in. And people come in, and I have to meet them where they are.
Yeah,
I have to figure
you
out like
do.
what is your what brings you here today, and
Yeah,
how can we get from A to B? So I guess
yeah,
that's it. That's my topic. That's my thing.
not
That's my
bad.
thread.
Not, I would say not bad. So my last question, which is the
Sure.
one I ask all my podcast guests,
Oh,
is what's next for you?
ooh, goodness gracious. What's next for me? Well, I think what is next for me is that I will continue to work on these writings and see where they take me. That's that's what's next, and really digging deep. And I'm glad that it resonated with you. That makes me
Oh
very happy.
yeah. No, I can't wait to see um w- how I can't wait to read them. And I think though that also I would hope that a trip to Florence is maybe in your
I
in your future. I mean, you are an art historian. You do need to come visit, you know?
should. I should. I
You
should.
should, but
Yeah.
not, as a between October and March.
Okay.
I would not recommend right now. But it's always good for the soul, right? To see
Oh, definitely.
a
Definitely.
little Renaissance art and to hear a little Italian being spoken,
Oh,
and you're so close. I mean, we're so close. I already told you I'm coming to Hamburg. I'm gonna figure
please,
it out. I don't
please,
know
please come.
when, I don't know how, but I will. I have loved speaking with you. I have found this conversation so illuminating, and also just really like I feel kind of less like alone in the world, like I feel like, hey, Manjula totally gets it. Like we've been living this parallel life. And that's a beautiful thing. And I think also I do want to give a shout out to Bryn Mawr because I am amazed at the women I know. I've met, first of all, the network is beautiful. Like, I mean, you and I were in the same class, but I have clients, that I have met through, that are Bryn Mawr alums, and people just that I've met throughout my life, and amazing minds, amazing hearts, amazing individuals who are really doing wonderful things and changing the world. And I think this work that you're doing is phenomenal. And I wish you the best of luck. And I can't wait to read. If you want to send me something, I would love to read something.
Bosca, thank you so much. This was so much fun. I had a great time, and I would be happy to send you something. No
Thank
problem.
you. Take care.
Thanks. Take care, Fosca.